Excellent. All right. Today we have a repeat, which is wonderful. Every now and then we get to hear people come back a year or two later and share some more story or how things are going. I'll do just a short intro. I really want to have Randy say more, and they'll take it from here. But Randy works with World Vision for a long time and takes people on amazing trips and helps them find their way of filling the hole in their gospel, giving back, doing good works. Isaiah's been here before. Amazing story last year going to Rwanda, and I keep telling that story to a lot of people about their reconciliation process and the truth and reconciliation and how they came just on their own to forgive each other. Never easy. So, but I'll let Randy say a little more about what they're going to talk about today. Something else. It's a new story and new work that Isaiah's doing, and Randy's very proud and glad to have you guys here. So take it away.
Thank you so much, Bengt. Can you hear me all right, Bengt? All right. Well, it's so good to be with you all this morning, and especially our special guests here. The term kingdom catalyst came to mind just a minute or two ago, and that's what we all strive to be, right? And so it brings me great joy to share with you about a very special group of young kingdom catalysts this morning, of which Isaiah is one of our shining leaders in that group. So about a year ago, a group of students, high school, college students, came together with the purpose of being an action-oriented community to actualize the kingdom in the world's hardest places, in the places that World Vision is following Jesus into, to help those who are in greatest need, and children, families, and communities who are most vulnerable, who are most suffering under the horrendous oppression of extreme poverty and injustice, and those that didn't win the birth lottery. And so this group of about, there's 13 presently in this group of students Isaiah's age and kind of in that age range, has come together not only to be a life-giving community to one another, to learn more about the causes that are happening, the circumstances in the world, but how they can actually be a part of the solution, that there actually is a way they can be a part of making a tremendous and lasting difference and impact. And in the little announcement blurb, there's a comment that this is a group heaven bent. We use another term with an H bent, but this group is heaven bent on advancing the kingdom and helping those in great need. And this group has actually been, they coalesced to be kind of the foundation of a much larger vision. There's 13 and 12 colleagues who are building out this community, kind of the platform to invite other peers into, really on a national basis, that they can learn about the work being done through World Vision and choose the area that they'd like to most participate in and contribute through bringing their voices, inviting their networks and communities to be a part of what they're doing, and in fundraising and in generating resources to advance and further that work in the world. So Isaiah and his crew kind of have a twofold job here that they've been embarked on. One is to kind of build out, to lay the groundwork for what this community is going to look like, what they want it to look like, not what us old people think that it should look like, but what do the teens and 20s want this group to look like for themselves, and actualize really making a difference and an impact. And that's kind of the one track. The other track is we thought it would be good, myself and colleagues who are kind of have the privilege of working with them and kind of building this out, to start their own fundraising campaign, even in the midst. So kind of starting to fly the plane even while they're building it. And we presented them at the time with 3 options that they could choose from. They were all pretty significant fundraising goals, because when we presented it back in February, March of this year, they had to achieve their goal by September 30th, so 13, 14 days ago. So they had to keep that in mind. So they only had roughly 6 months. The first goal was to bring a water point to a community, what we would consider a well here, and which would be tremendous gift of $12,500, which would bring clean water to 250 people. So that's the 12,500 goal. If they wanted to stretch more, for double that, there was a $25,000 goal, which was to bring water to the entire community. It usually takes, in many areas, about 2 of these water points to serve an entire community. So they had a 12,000 and a 25,000. And then we had a third goal, kind of a stretch goal, not so much for them to tackle now, but here's kind of what we're looking toward in the future. Here's the kind of difference you guys can make as you get this built out. There's a goal of 125,000 to fully outfit one of these community regional hospitals or their health centers that serves really about nearly 10,000 people in a region, to fully outfit one of those with clean water, sanitation, and hygiene. If you can believe it, there's health centers in the developing world. There's actually many of these that people go when they're sick, they go to give birth. They don't even have clean water to wash with, let alone sterilize, and sanitation, hygiene, things that we would just consider reprehensible. So those were the 3 goals that we gave them to choose. And we asked them, really there were 2 goals plus this third one. We asked them to take it home over the weekend, pray about it, and to come back to us with their response on which one they wanted to choose. So Isaiah, do you mind sharing which goal your group chose to tackle?
Yeah, well, just want to make sure you can hear, everyone can hear me. Yep. Okay. So I'll kind of take it a step before that too. Joining this group was really important for me because I remember back during when we did the Rwanda campaign that we talked about last year, a lot of people my age kind of came up to me and asked, how could they get involved? How could they make a tangible change in the world? Because, and you can kind of just see that, if you're just paying attention to your kids or nephews or, whoever it is, that there's this want to make a change, but not necessarily a certainty of like, how do you do that? And I had a lot of great opportunities at World Vision. We have, just a lot of connections there, friends, many of whom are here today, so thank you. But not everyone has that. And so what was great about this group is that it gave the opportunity to set that foundation for people who have no experience in philanthropy, no experience with World Vision, to come along. And so with that, when we were offered these goals, I really had kind of 3 personal goals for what I wanted our group to do. And so one of them was just to make an impact. Like, I didn't want this to just be something where if it disappeared tomorrow, no one else would notice. Like, it needed to make an impact on the world. And what was great is that all 3 of those goals make an impact. I have a soft spot in my heart for clean water projects. That's what we did in Rwanda. So that we, all of them were good options. Beyond that, I wanted it to push us. I wanted it to be a challenge. And I think in the kind of blurb for today's event, it said, a goal that God would have to bring to fruition. And I wanted it to be something that maybe we couldn't do on our own and would be a leap of faith. And then my final thing was I wanted this to get on World Vision's radar. because that's really the key to expanding this. You know, there's a lot of things at World Vision. So whatever they're going to focus on, you know, it's got to be the thing where they know, okay, this is worth our investment. And so the one of those, you know, the one option that really hit all three of those marks, that made an impact, that would push us and really cause us to have to rely on, you know, God to fill in the gaps, and that would definitely make a statement, was the healthcare center. You know, it's $125,000, which is more money than I think I can comprehend, and I think anyone in the group could comprehend. And so I wasn't sure what everyone else was thinking. I knew that that was the one I wanted to push for. And it seems like I didn't really have to push for it that much because everyone else was in agreement that that was what we needed to do.
You know, so often we think we're ministering to people and they end up ministering to us. And this was one of those moments when we came back together as a group and Isaiah and his peers said, we want to tackle the audacious one. And as Isaiah mentioned, the number of various reasons for it, but the one certainly that for me was most profound was, we want to do this one because there's no way we're going to accomplish this unless God shows up and makes this happen. And, and that was a real ministry moment for me personally in my life. You know, how often am I willing to do that, to make those kind of decisions in my life that there's no way it's going to happen unless God shows up to bring it to pass. And so that was they tackled that. I think we were working with them more nervous than they were because they had a 6-month window to raise $125,000. So we knew it was going to be challenging, and they did too. They knew it was going to be insurmountable unless there were some wonderful gifts of favor along the way. So Isaiah, do you mind, in the midst of that, how did you feel challenged, or how did being pushed manifest itself or show up? And then once you kind of shared that, you mind sharing with us the outcome, since September 30th is behind us, almost 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, well, we asked for a challenge, and that's what we got. Be careful what you wish for. But yeah, I mean, I think we definitely were learning along the way, and that deadline, you know, September 30th, starting in March, it was approaching faster and faster. And by the time September hit, we had raised $100,000, which is a crazy amount of money. I mean, I think we were all kind of blown away by that. But we hadn't set out to raise $100,000. We had set out to raise $125,000. And so we hadn't finished our goal yet, and we needed to do that. And I think we had about like 18 days left or something in that range, and we still needed to raise like 20,000. And it just felt like in September, a lot of things were piling up. My family, we're in the middle of moving, and we're, you know, that's like just a big stress on its own. And I was heading back to school. I'm trying to get my associate's degree and planning that out. And just even like reconnecting with my friends from high school who I haven't seen in 2 years. Like, it's kind of like going to a high school reunion, except you don't necessarily leave and you still have to make those connections for another year or, you know, beyond that. And so there's all those things going on. And I was just feeling like, okay, there's this goal with this World Vision group, and I was just putting it lower and lower on my plate. And it was while I was writing, I was in the middle of writing a draft for my personal college essay, which is another one of the stresses, you know, just applying to colleges. And I was writing about, you know, I had a whole bunch of different ones, but one of them was about our trip to Rwanda and kind of just different aspects of that. And I was writing about a young girl who, I don't know if you remember, her name was Rebecca. And we had spent the day with her family in one of their villages. And you know, she was just an incredibly smart young girl. She spoke like 5 languages, you know, wanted to be a doctor, had big dreams. And you know, she really had accomplished a lot, but did it without clean water. And we had, you know, part of that day was going down to, you know, get water from where they, you know, collect water every single day. And that moment was really impactful because um, it just encompassed a lot of things that you can read about and you can kind of see through other people's stories, but you don't fully understand until you're there. Because when we went to collect that water, there was cows who were drinking the water that they were going to drink and were literally defecating in front of us in the water that they were going to have to use. And it was just this connection of like, this is real. There, she, you know, we get to go home to, you know, back to the United States, but she stays here and she has to continue to drink this. And I remember she said to my mom, you know, this, we have to drink water that the cows drink from. This is wrong. And I was writing about that, and I was writing about how that had, you know, pushed me to finish the Rwanda campaign because it was just such an emotional moment. And I realized when I was doing that, that I was putting, you know, writing about this story above actually finishing the goal that I had at the moment. And I was, you know, just realizing, why am I doing that? I have this goal right now. I can write about this later. I need to do this right now. And so pretty much right as I realized that, I started making calls and making emails and, you know, reaching out to people who maybe I was like, I don't know if I want to reach out. That might be awkward. Maybe they, you know, don't want to donate. I said, it doesn't matter. There's, you know, 9,000 people in Zambia who are going to get health, access to healthcare. I think I can get comfortable being uncomfortable for a moment. And so I did that. And, you know, I had a lot of people who did reach out and make donations, which was really great, but we still hadn't reached the goal yet. And I had a moment where I realized, okay, this is a group project and I'm not going to be able to do this on my own, but that doesn't mean that I can't get us just a little bit closer. And I'd spent the summer working for my grandma, who I think is on the call. Hey, grandma. And so I, you know, made a little bit of money from that, and I don't have any personal expenses. You know, I don't have to pay for groceries or insurance or anything like that. And so I just realized that I needed to make a personal investment into the campaign because I'm asking a lot of people. I'm asking a lot of everyone I asked to donate. I'm asking a lot of World Vision. And so it just felt like if I'm going to ask this of everyone else, I needed to make a contribution of my own. And so I did that. And, you know, at the end, I think a lot of people in the group were feeling like, okay, it's time to, you know, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And we had people reach out and we ended up not just hitting our goal, but actually surpassing it. We had one kind of final big donation that brought us over, I think, over $130,000 on the um, donation page alone. But what was really special about the campaign is that we also had a family who came along and matched it early on. And so because we hit this deadline by September 30th, we received that match, which turned it into pretty much a $250,000 campaign. And then on top of that, which I didn't know about, that, I mean, Randy kind of dropped this as a surprise that blew me away. I didn't, I didn't know about it. We also had another donation from somebody who remains anonymous, but is a part of our group's network, who made a $150,000 donation to fully fund another healthcare center. And so when we added up all the different donations and all the different avenues, and it ended up being about $420,000 that the group raised. So more than 3 healthcare centers.
Yeah, and it was amazing. The thought that came to some of our minds, my favorite miracle, and I know it's shared by one of our other friends here on the Margot, is the loaves and fishes story. And that's exactly what brought to mind. These young people gave and Isaiah gave his lunch, and watch what how God miraculously multiplied that. So there was not only everyone fed, that they met their campaign, but in roughly triplicate of their campaign. And these are not World Vision's, I'll be very clear here. World Vision is a very large organization, lots of wonderful funders and supporters. These were not people waiting in the wings to come alongside and help. This was extra funding beyond our normal supporters. And so this was all God. This was God showing up, and really us stepping out in faith, following the lead of Isaiah and his cohort. And Isaiah very much undersold or underspoke what he did and regarding his gift. So there was we were looking at the gifts coming in the closing days, and this gift of $1,000 came in from Isaiah, and I thought that surely can't be from Isaiah. I mean, he's a student in high school and he's taking geometry tests, and he's right. And so, what's up with that, Isaiah? And so I called him, and he said, you know what? As he relayed to you, had this extra $1,000 from this summer. And here's the thing that I just, again, the ministry moment back to the person attempting the ministry, is he said, I couldn't think of anything as meaningful that I could purchase for myself as what that $1,000 could do for others through this campaign. And I felt like he should have been holding a microphone, because he could have just dropped it. So that was another ministry moment along the way. If you ever want to be ministered to, work with some young, inspiring folks like Isaiah, and you'll be having these moments along the way. So Isaiah, last question. Because of the U13, there's going to be 30,000 lives forever changed because of U13 and how God stepped in with you. How has your life been changed through this?
Yeah. What I think is fun about this is my answer will probably change over time, since this is just 2 weeks after the goals ended. But I think right now, as because we've completed the goal. That was one of the many kind of stresses on my plate, and I'm now trying to tackle moving and applying to colleges and getting through my degree. And now I have those to face. What I'm realizing is, when I set out for this, just praying that we were going to hit this $125,000 goal, or even back with the Rwanda campaign, praying to hit $25,000. It was like I was praying for a very specific thing, just hoping, God, please get us to this. And then, he says, that's not what we're going to do. We're going to do something that you can't even comprehend. You don't even understand the plan. It's not going to be $125,000. It's going to be more than triple that. The Rwanda campaign, it was $75,000. And, it was just that moment of stress of like, are we going to do it? And he's like, we're not just going to do it. We're going to go above and beyond. And so just with everything that I'm, dealing with, and I think, especially because we still haven't sold our old house. It's like, can we please sell our house? It's like just praying that whatever needs to happen happens, not praying for a specific thing, but just whatever we need to experience and go through. Praying not that I get into this college, but that's just that I get into the right college, or maybe, whatever it is that I need to do. Just realizing that whatever I think the right, pathway is, I probably am wrong in some way. So just allowing God to show me, actually, this is where you need to go, and just listening to what he's saying. I've really taken that away from what he's done with our campaign.
I like what you said there. Whatever I think the right pathway is, I'm probably wrong in some way. That's one I'll write down. Well, thank you, Isaiah, for sharing with the group. I know you inspire wherever you go, as do your other 12 colleagues and your peers, and we're excited for what God has in store next. And so I'd just love to open it up, questions, comments from the gallery.
I'm just going to step in right away.
Go ahead, jump in, lean in a little, Adele.
I'd love to hear about the relationships with the other 12 that were created, because I think that's a dynamic that could be really awesome to hear about. Just that dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's what's kind of fun about having us take on such a big goal, is that it requires a lot of teamwork, because none of us were going to be able to do it on our own. We had to work together. It forced us into that dynamic. And I think, you know, I can only speak for myself, but I feel like because our group is over Zoom, it, you know, can be hard to connect. And so because we were just forced to, it really caused us to become much closer as a group. And I'm not exactly sure what you're getting at, Mom, but what I'll say is I think that these are, you know, friendships and relations that are going to last. And one of the things I've just noticed is that I really um, am enjoying, you know, I'm kind of naturally better at talking, but it's what's nice about the group is it's fun to listen, because you know, people will say something and I go, oh, that was a lot smarter than what I was thinking. You know, it just made me realize, okay, I can close my lips every once in a while, because there's always some better advice out there.
Isaiah, this is Gary right above you, at least on my screen. And what you were saying last that Randy was picking up on, kind of wondering where you're going and how you're going to get there. There's a wonderful teaching in Psalm 23 that Rabbi Harold Kushner points out in his book on Psalm 23. And it has to do with that first phrase. We're used to it in the English language of saying, he leads me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. But there's a whole different kind of meaning behind that in the Hebrew. And it's kind of an ambiguous text. And so he points to a story in ancient Judaism about a man who was on a journey walking, and he came across a child. Of course, the child is very symbolic in the story. He comes across a child and he asks the child, is there a shortcut to such and such a village? And the child responds, there is a way that is short, that is long. And there is a long way that is short. And Rabbi Kushner points to the ambiguity in the Hebrew language. And he says what that's really getting at is roundabout ways that wind up in the right direction. And it sounds like you're on that kind of path with this, but it's really exciting to see what's been accomplished, not only through your efforts, but in the activity of God's leading, and you're trying to follow and not quite sure, may feel like very roundabout, but provision and incredible learning. So I really commend you.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Isaiah, this is Dan. This is me over here raising my hand. I wrote down several notes to what you said, but the thing that really captured my attention was you mentioned becoming comfortable with the uncomfortable, and just seems to me that that's what Jesus asks all of us to do every day, is to be comfortable with the uncomfortable. That in fact, a life of faith, whether it be asking for help getting $125,000 or you know, passing a test, maybe, a life of faith is being okay with the uncomfortable. And I love that concept. It's actually a concept I've been working on with myself for the last couple of months. So thank you for that. Thank you for making that comment. And what a cool project to become uncomfortable about and with.
And Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I'd say I've just kind of noticed that like no one tells the stories of when they were really comfortable on the couch. It's like all of our best moments are when we, you know, did something uncomfortable.
Yep.
Isaiah Allen here. How are you, my friend?
Hey, good to see you.
Haven't seen you for about a year, but anyway, just wonderful sharing. Um, I'm drawn so much to all that you are and all that you're doing, because when these things happen like the way that they happen, it's because God did it, and you were faithful to Him, and not knowing what would happen, knowing that the results would be 3 times the goal. And if I understood right, that amount will affect 30,000 lives, the 400 and some odd K, 30,000. My goodness. And that's all God's doing. And He used you and He used your 12 friends in such a way that there's going to be more. And what your mom asked the question about, how did it affect you and your 12 friends in this 6-month process? You will remember this 50 years from now. 50 years from now. 50 years ago, I was 16 years old, and I went to an experience in Japan in August of 1971. And it had to do with the Boy Scouts. It was called a World Jamboree. And I remember the events of that jamboree like it was yesterday. And the friends that I made, primarily from all in Seattle and London and Sweden, and I'm thinking of the troops that were around us, we still stay in touch 50 years later. 50 years later. And what did God do in that August summer of 1971? Well, He happened to put a major hurricane into the entire campsite, 100-mile-an-hour winds and torrential rains, and we had to evacuate. And it was quite an experience amongst all the hubbub of a huge storm that was life-threatening. And there were 5,000 scouts there from all over the world. Anyway, the point being here, this is the first of many, probably not the first, but these are grounding, these are markers in your young 17 years so far that you will always remember and the Lord will build on. And I'm just grateful to know you and your family and your mom and your grandmother here. So keep it going, young man.
Thank you. And I imagine maybe doing this in a pandemic might be our version of the hurricane.
Yeah. Hey, Isaiah, this is Margot. Thank you. Thank you for the inspiration and the encouragement, and for being so attentive to the Holy Spirit's, I would say, just gentle whisper. I was really struck when you were talking about, I was writing about the experience and this prompting by the Holy Spirit to say, there's more to do. And so you put down your pen and you picked up a different pen and a phone. But I think it's just right. It's just so encouraging to, and that's why it's so wonderful to be in fellowship with one another, to really understand how people are actively and vibrantly walking in their faith, and how this journey that we have is not one that we take alone. And it's one that that just, because of the magnitude of God's power and grace, it brings such a beautiful humility. And that's the other thing that you have, is that. And so I'm inspired and encouraged today by you, and just deeply appreciate, your desire to really walk where Jesus is calling you to walk. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for joining. And yeah, I mean, when God definitely, I think, humbled everyone in the group, taking us beyond what we could do on our own.
Isaiah, it's your grandma. I'm so proud of you. I have a question though. You've met this humongous goal. What's your next goal?
Well, that's what I was asked after the Rwanda campaign. And last time I gave answers and they were all wrong. And so I'll say, I'm waiting for God to show me because He's got a path for me and I don't know it. So I'll wait for him to show me the way.
I just recognized something, Isaiah. When you went to the first World Vision Conference with me way back when you were 14 years old and you met Margot Day, you were so struck by her because of the work she had done. And I remember just in awe, you were just in awe of, and here this full circle of the work you've done now and her coming and her just not, I don't want to say in awe, but just inspired by you now. How full circle God is, and just kind of the sacredness of God in this moment. Just how cool that is. Do you remember being in that? Like it was kind of like a circle. We like had a circle, and we walked out of that, and you were like, "How cool that I got to be in Margot Day's circle and hear her, and how she's amazing, and all the things that she's done." And yeah, that's really cool this morning. Yeah. Anyways.
If anyone doesn't know Margot's story, she's an inspirational woman, that's for sure.
We gotta have Margot come speak here.
Yes.
I was just saying, if anybody doesn't know, we'll have
Line her up.
John
Line
here.
her up.
Sorry, Margot,
Share
you
some
just got
stories.
trapped. Oops.
If you made it one
All right,
Thursday,
Margot,
you can
you're
always
in.
make it another one.
As long as I can have a cup of coffee, I'm good.
Oh, I just want to say as well, I'm just incredibly proud of you, Isaiah. I mean, you are inspiring. All of us, no matter what age, need to continue to walk a life of huge faith. And that's exactly what your journey's been, and your testimony and how the Lord met you in that. I'm sure there were many days where you were questioning why did you get yourself into this? And yet the Lord met you in that. And I would just love to know, for your, what your time with the Lord looks like, what you enjoy doing to bring yourself closer to Jesus, and just, how he's met you personally on those harder days.
Yeah, well, I think that the Zambia campaign is actually kind of a good example of what my relationship with God looks like, because, my connection with him is always kind of in those uncertain moments. So, it's not always the most, traditional relationship. It's always kind of like being where the work needs to be done. I was baptized in Rwanda because that's where I, felt my connection with God was kind of closest. And so I don't know if I'm answering your question exactly how you mean it, but like my connection with God is where he wants his work to be done. And so I don't know if that answers what you're trying to get at.
Absolutely, it does. Absolutely. Thank you.
Yes, thanks for
Keep going.
Isaiah, I'm struck by 3 generations of your family on one Zoom call. That in a world of being, particularly now in isolation, that we talk about communities so often, and often I find that a cliche, but I'm valuing having a chance to witness a family of three generations in support, congruent, and deeply passionate about your young commitment and ambition to strive to be unique, to take the hard road, and to have such young success in the empowerment of helping those who you might not ever meet, but knowing that your gesture and help brought them just the simplest but most elegant gesture of life, which is clean water. So bravo to your effort.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I mean, to kind of piggyback on that, it's my, parents and my grandma are definitely a big part of, they're why I'm here talking to you today. I learned what I know from them. So none of this is possible without them, teaching me along the way.
Isaiah, there's something else you said that struck me, and it's something that this group needs to be aware of, and frankly, every group needs to be aware of. And that's that if there's so many groups that I know of that form, not totally dissimilar from this one, but they form with the mission of mutual encouragement and accountability, all of which is fine. But you started a group, it sounds like, with that as the secondary objective. The first objective was external and outward, to help others. And in pursuing an activity to help others, you in fact grew as a group, you matured as a group, and probably your love for one another grew because you did have that external outward focus.
Yeah. And I think I see what you're getting at, because yeah, I mean, making an impact was the priority, because I knew that we would force to be, accountable to the group and to work as a team, so long as we were making an impact in doing something we weren't sure we could do on our own. So if our focus was, we need to learn how to be accountable, it's like, that's great to do on its own, but it's better if we're doing that, by stepping out and taking this goal.
Yeah.
In a byproduct.
Right. Randy, a question for you. So you spent 6 months, well, almost coming up on a year, hanging out with this group of famous 13. At what point did you look at either them just sort of individually, or was it when you started watching money started coming in? At what point did you kind of raise your eyebrows and go, wow, there's something going on here?
Well, I'm pretty sure that it was right when they chose the crazy goal. And every time at those catalytic points in life where it's like, what? Okay, that's when something's going on here. And when they said, we're choosing this option, not 1 or 2, but this third one, because it won't happen unless God shows up in a big way. It was like, are you listening to the faith of these teens and 20-year-old here? And that's when I knew something special was going to happen, and how that was going to happen, had no idea in those 6 months.
That's neat.
Hey, Randy, I do got to ask though, at that moment you said you guys were more nervous than them, and we often, adults, talk about being scared or fearful of failure, let's call it. Although I'm not sure what they could have done to have failed, right? You just maybe missed the mark. But what were you guys, what made you nervous? I want to look at that, right? Because they went out in trust, but our adult reaction is like, oh, we want to be in control, maybe. I don't know. What was that?
Well, yeah, we kind of went into this is thinking in our false selves of, this is our group. This is our group. And we want our group to succeed, and we want them to do well. We want, World Vision is watching, all these different things, right? And there was a point that's like, well, this isn't our group at all. This is God's group. And there's no ownership that any of us have in this group. Myself, Isaiah, any of our colleagues and his peers. This is God's group. And he pulled us together. And so let's buckle up and see what happens.
And I will say, I could tell that you and Lauren and Missy, who are kind of the adults in the group, I could tell you were more nervous. There was
This might mean, go ahead.
There was a few points where I think it was Lauren, who is kind of an outside hire for the group, was like, we got to do this event so we can finish it in July. And I was like, nope, we're not doing this in July. It's supposed to come down to the end. So yeah, I could tell you guys, like, we need to, let's do this now.
Recently read a sermon on the phrase, you must become like children to enter the kingdom. And long sermon, what that means, all the many things that children do or have that adults don't anymore.
Groups that are going to want to do this, what's the opportunity for scalability now that you've tested it?
I think Randy will have a better answer for that.
Scalability for the group, Adele? That's the big vision.
Or
The
for
big
more
vision.
groups, you know? Is it like giving circles? Will we have more? Like, will they be cropping up?
Oh, there's going to be more. Yeah, there'll be. It's building out this group Isaiah is a part of to be an action-oriented community that's far more than the original 13. That coming together, like Isaiah had mentioned, it's for one another, for others, to help, as Dan mentioned, on behalf of others, and that this would grow dramatically in scale and in scope.
Just to clarify, were there other groups of 13? Or was this the only one?
Well,
Go ahead, Isaiah.
yeah, I know that there is, it's kind of a different, World Vision has a section called Strong Women, Strong World, which is focused on equality in the, developing world, because that's a, major problem. And there was, I don't know if there still is a group, but there's a group of women in Aspen, Colorado, who met, and they were kind of a next gen group, but we were pretty much, we're kind of like the, I don't know, maybe the vanguard of this kind of the test campaign.
So the women in Colorado, did they also have the chance to choose a goal and to go forward, or and what had they heard about what God was doing in your 13? How does that impact? Is this contagious?
Yeah, so they actually, I think they had started a goal before we had. I can't remember exactly what it was for. I think it might have been an area development program, which is what we did in Rwanda. But yeah, we actually had the opportunity to work with them or at least me and some of the other members of the group did a breakout meeting at the World Vision's national, or gosh, what is it? I always call it the NLC conference. It's just their big conference of the year, and so they had a breakout session called the Next Gen, and so we got to interact there and kind of just talk about our experiences.
In closing up here, we're getting close to the end. If there's once final questions are concluded, if there's no other, I'd like to ask if we could all just pray for Isaiah. As Gary mentioned, his long, short journey. Can I
Amen.
maybe
Definitely.
start?
Go ahead. Yeah. And yeah, multiple people can join in, pray, and then we'll do like we usually do. Sort of, that'll be a formal close, and we can keep the conversation going for a while if you want to stay too.
All right, I'll be honored to begin here. Gracious God, thank you for this time this morning to come together in fellowship with one another as your kingdom catalysts, and to hear from one of our members, Isaiah, and what he and his peers have done together with you to make such a resounding difference in the world, a resounding and lasting difference that's going to continue to ripple forward in that loaves and fishes manner. And we just thank you for Isaiah's heart, his heart to invest in your kingdom first and foremost, with the funds that you have blessed him with, and for his path. He's in such a formative place in his life now, and you would just make that path, illuminate that path before him.
Father, I just would like to pray for the entire next generation, or whatever we call Isaiah's generation, the generation after the millennials. Father, we in the older generation always look down and back to those in the younger generation, and we think, what is the world coming to? And yet here we have an example of 13 young men and women coming together to not just meet together for their own mutual support, but to help people that they have never met, may never meet. They may only read about in a newspaper if they happen to read the back page of the newspaper. And yet it's those people, Father, that are in your front page. And it's those people who you seem to care most about. And Father, I pray for this generation that they would have that perspective of searching and caring for others more than themselves. And in doing so, would actually benefit themselves.
Amen. Father, we lift you up in your name and pray that you continue to move in Isaiah's life and continue to spread out in ripples through him and through his friends, through the 13, through the work they did. Be contagious, be an inspiration. Let your children in your kingdom show the older ones how it's done and how to live a life with open hands and open heart and trusting you and moving forward without knowing the end result. And thank you for the inspiration. Continue to guide and protect them. In Jesus' name, amen. That one.